capture that warrior archer mystique.
There's some specifics about the bow, which I know Fish could elaborate on, historic accuracy of it.
So it's definitely, the Japanese bow is uniquely proportioned. It's shorter on the bottom and longer at the top instead of like drawing from the center, so that you can ride on horseback and the lower part will not get bumped into by your legs or the horse, and you can fire a longbow from on top of a horse.
Interesting.
Right, so you'll see that reflected here in the bow. Although, of course, we also jazzed it up a bit, added those dragon details, which you'll see soon in his kit. There's a little bit more of that. And then we really just drew on a lot of the traditional samurai appearance, specifically the mask and the armor on the shoulders, back, waist.
Now, Fisher, I'm coming to you first then, because I guess we start talking about this god. First of all, clearly it's a hunter because he has a freaking bow, right?
Like bow. Most of our hunters actually have bows. And he's got a bow. He's probably a hunter. Yeah.
Job done.
True
One
story.
job undone.
Yeah.
Next up, though, what's his passive?
Oh,
I really like
so
the shooting noise.
If you will notice, like most samurai, he is both proficient in bow and sword. He's got a sword on him. So his passive is Master of Arms. And what that's going to do is he's going to grow stronger as he attacks enemies. Namely, he's going to gain stacks of MP5 for each successful basic attack he lands, so that he can use his abilities more often.
Gotcha. So he's all about trying to keep this combat going, just to keep himself sustained, to continue using more and more.
That's right.
Okay. Well, with that, we can move on to the first ability, and this is called Eagle Eye, AJ.
This is a very interesting ability. So this is one of the earlier ones when we started designing this god. So it is a basic attack stim that's going to give him bonus damage on his basic attacks, as well as up to 3, ranking up to 4 shots. And these are going to be actual basic attacks that travel much further than regular basic attacks.
Okay.
So what this is, he activates it, and then his next 3 to 4 basic attacks will travel further. They will still crit. They will still apply basic attack in item effects.
Okay.
But you can now shoot them 80 units?
So you know when you're trying to kill that guy, and then he does a leap, and he tries to get away, and you're like, hold my beer.
And you will shoot
Do
these
they go through
giant
walls?
dragon arrows.
not go
No.
Okay.
There's one other clarification. Just like Mercury's abilities, which crit and proc basic attacks, his are technically abilities and thus do not affect towers from outside tower aggro range.
Good to know.
So they don't hit towers, but they will hit everything else as if they were a basic attack.
And they still stop when they hit minions.
They stop when they hit any single target or wall.
So it's not going to hit everybody in that cone that he's firing
No,
through there.
just one target.
Okay.
And they will look like cool dragon flying arrows instead of his regular arrow.
Now, with this ability as well, at the moment, it's looking like it's going to be 3 shots until you level it up further, and then there'll be 4 shots you get later.
It's a 3-3-3-4-4.
Yeah.
And there's also bonus damage off on each shot, and that bonus damage is going to give you more bonus damage if you shoot someone within 55 units.
Okay.
So he essentially gets 2 levels of bonus damage. One is inside of the range, and one is outside the
normal
range.
basic attack range means extra damage. Outside of it, a little bit less, but still some damage.
And this bonus damage also works like Jablanque's, where it factors in to the basic attack damage beforehand, which means it can be affected by critical strike items.
So if you crit on a close-up version of this shot, you're going to get more damage than you would from a regular in-hand crit.
Correct. Or you'll still do more even in the long range, just not as much as you would with a close range stemmed shot.
Well, okay, Pawn was blowing my mind here with 3 different sets of numbers, but it's totally his items that he's bought.
He's got Hydras.
So it's only 2.
Is that who gets that? Is that did you put that in the guide for him? Okay, well then that's cool. It's cool.
Well, Fish, back to you again, because next ability you mentioned about the lore and the banners coming down.
Right.
This is the next ability. It's called Heavenly Banner. What does it do?
So first, look at this targeter. We got a targeter that looks a lot like our classic circle targeter, but in fact we got an octagonal targeter.
Ooh.
8 to throw out the 8. But he's gonna conjure a banner down at the area of his choosing. It can do damage to enemies.
Okay.
And it can also increase attack speed to allies who are in it. Anytime he summons the banner, wherever he is, he gets some attack speed, and if he stands in the area of the banner, he benefits from both the intrinsic that he gets for firing it, as well as the area that his allies get. So he can get twice as much as his allies.
So he doesn't have to stand in the circle to benefit.
But he will get more if he stands in the circle.
So friends who walk in that will get an attack speed buff. If he walks through it, he gets an additional attack speed buff to the one that he got for just throwing it.
Right, so when you're running away from Hachiman and you see the banner fall down in front of you,
cast your AoEs on that spot and try to force him out.
Yeah, this is his more traditional lane clear ability. But also his attack speed stim, which is a really unique combination that we haven't seen before in a Hunter, having both of those. So you have to make some interesting choices about where to place this, especially when like sieging towers. You can wait for the perfect time for the minions to walk by and drop it, hit all of them, and then still be in a spot to stand in while you siege the tower. Feels really good. Especially really good against Gold Fury and Fire Giant as well.
Yep, any objectives, towers, phoenixes, like it transitions towards more of that role.
Man, they did a really cool job on the sound with this guy too.
Yeah.
Like, I love the basic attack sound and the banner smashing down.
Yeah, that heavier bow sound feels really good.
It's looking like a main for me already, but there's only on 2 abilities in the
support
passive.
main.
I mean, change. 3 is called Aijutsu.
EI.
Aijutsu, sorry.
EI Jutsu.
I was trying to learn it because before we went live, Fishman, it's like EIEIO, and I was like, okay, I've got to remember that. EIEIJutsu.
That's a good way of remembering it.
It works out.
I might have forgotten how to pronounce it, actually.
So, AJ, what is this? This
country,
target looks very
Japanese,
interesting.
Yeah, this is his sword ability, which of course we really wanted in the kit. This is a short-range dash followed by a circle attack.
Okay.
So he'll execute both in a row really quickly. And this does damage and passes through targets.
Okay.
But
Sound is so good.
the interesting thing is if you hit an enemy with both components, you will stun them for 1 second at all ranks. So in that case, where you got hit by the line and the circle, just that little sweet spot, which is relatively a small area. If you get hit by that, you'll stun people.
Well, that's
That
tricky.
sounds
That's
difficult.
tricky.
I've pulled it off a few times in playtesting. It's been fun.
No, I'm not upset about it being tricky. That's a good thing. That's a good
Yeah.
thing.
In my experience, the trick is to ignore the circle entirely, because if you hit them with the dash, you will almost certainly hit them with the circle.
Yeah, aim with the line. But it's a relatively short dash with a good bit of animation time, so he's not quite as mobile as some other hunters.
And, I mean, you're putting your hunter into melee combat, which is also very risky too. So.
Yeah, if you're gonna use this aggressively, you better be ready to clean up the kill pretty quickly afterwards.
Have a way to escape.
Now you drop the banner on them, and then you
over the banner?
and then you're like,
fighting
"What?"
in here with all your stims.
And then when they run away, you do the long shot, and you.
I mean, you don't just have to do the long shot, my friend, because
Yeah,
I
you can
heard
chase him down.
I've seen the name of this ultimate. I think it's time for Fishman to introduce this ultimate.
So we've got an archer with a bow specifically for riding horses, and we have a guy who's kind of famous for mounted archery. So we figured we'd just call the ability mounted archery and put him on a horse.
Let's go. Let's see it.
Now,
Oh my God! Look.
The interesting thing here, he only gets 1 shot, but the interesting thing is he can actually aim separate from the direction he's traveling. He can steer the horse with one of the sticks or WASD, and then he can control the aim with his mouse or the other stick.
And if they're in the cone when you fire,
They
it's
get
going to hit them.
That's right. It fires a seeking projectile at quite a distance at every enemy in range, which you'll see the markers over their head to let you know this is how many guys you're hitting.
Okay.
These are which ones. Yeah.
This ability definitely takes some high skill cap to really master controlling the horse.
So
and even just finding the right timing to use the ability. It's best to use when you're on your way to a fight as your first thing when you show up to engage, or really to run someone down who's escaping.
Right, or when you come back from respawn and there's a fight at the tower, you're like, yeah.
when your
Gonna
first
get
game
in
with him,
there.
as you're learning the controls, you can probably charge straight in and shoot people in front of you and use it to escape, no problem. And then it'll take a little bit more learning, both on console and PC, to get the hang of aiming separately.
Now, talk me through a little bit, Fishman, because when I'm looking at this animation right now, once he's fired the shot, he immediately starts to dismount animation.
Right.
Is that right?
That's right. So
How long does it actually last for if you don't fire?
So the full dash is 3.2 seconds, and I'm actually not seeing the timers fill, but we had them filling, and we will definitely have them filling.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a timer on the sides of that cone showing you how long you've got, and when you reach the end, as long as you have targets in range, it will fire at them for you.
Okay, cool.
Before you dismount, you won't like accidentally run out of time trying to wait for the perfect second.
But the moment you mount, you could fire, but it'll immediately start the dismount, so you can't just stay in the horse after taking your
Up
shot.
to 3.2 seconds, or the moment you fire. It also applies a slow that lasts for 1.5 seconds after and ranks up in magnitude.
Okay. So, play style. I mean, obviously he's going to be a hunter, so we're looking at duo lane here. And most hunters can probably solo in certain scenarios too that hit him. But definitely look at the hunter role. How has he been working out against some of the other hunters, in the meta, would you say?
So he's really positioning based, right? So he's got a lot of tools at his disposal. If he can use them and get off to a lead, he does very well. You can see how his kid gives him multiple late game tools. So if he can get there comfortably, then he's in a great spot. But he also has some weaknesses. If like inside of his long range, that one is a little bit less useful. Then his, the damage of his 2 kind of falls off as the game goes on. The dash isn't super long range, and the ultimate, you can use it either to engage or to escape, and you might sacrifice that engage potential if you have to use it to get out. So he's definitely got some punishment in there.
He has some interesting dynamics as a hunter in the fact that he can actually buff his teammates' attack speed, which is a very unique thing as a hunter. So you really want to be there to help objectives. Hunters already want to be there most of the case, but Hachiman has even more reason to be there for the whole fight. And we've felt that he generally peaks a little bit later in the game. Really, once you get the ability to hit big damage off of his long-range shots. His 2's lane clear is decent, so he can get through the early game, but he really shines later game.
Feeling a little bit like a Neath or a Chiron in terms of very ability-focused hunter. Would you say that in terms of playstyle, or does he feel more auto-attack?
He feels more auto-attacky to me because both of his 2 and his 1 play, even though his 1's technically not basic attacks, it plays just like basic attacks, it scales like basic attacks, and his 2 accentuates basic attacks.
Yeah.
And also his damaging abilities are very high utility, so even if you don't put points in them, you can still dash and you can still ride the horse to get where you're trying to go.
And then immediately get off and go back to basic attacking, so, yeah.
And Pon showed something cool there for a second, which is you can activate the 1 and fire other abilities, and then continue to use the 1. So it's more like an ammo counter, which we've seen in Jingwei, Thoth, Medusa, etc. So you can mix that in between your abilities. You can save those shots for a long time if you want, but you'll need to fire them to get the cooldown started, so you don't really want to sit on 1 arrow for a long time.
We even, Ryan, our programmer, did some nice tech where you can have the 1 active, target the 2 or the 3, cancel it, and the 1 will still be active. It doesn't cancel the toggle when you're trying to cancel the casting of another ability. So, very cool guy.
Now he does come with a clap and a wave. I'm going to just surprise Pan and see if he's got him now.
Oh, geez.
Hey, Pan, you got the clap and the wave,
He does not.
He does.
Oh, hello, Hachiman.
Hello, Hachiman. And, of course,
Nicely done.
he also has a voice pack as long as Pon has bought
Oh,
it.
yeah.
We should have a listen.
So Hindu, I got it.
Yosha! Yosha! You truly know your role. Victory is near. Sashawa Saikoda! Sashawa Saikoda! Sashawa Saikoda! Sashawa Saikoda! True strength comes from discipline, and you lack both. He who is righteous and just will triumph. In my country, bakers make bread using bushi dough.
Okay.
Whatcha? Time for
That's a good
showdown. A samurai. Never mind.
So does that "I'm the greatest" literally translate to "I'm the greatest," or is it something similar?
It's I'm the greatest.
It's "I'm the greatest."
I was kind of hoping Tina did the translation and we never knew what it really said, but it was something not made for games. I thought it would have been great.
I mean, I could sneak those in and say they were whatever I wanted, and I don't
Someone
think
would
anyone
find
here
out.
Now, there is a recolor as well, which we've not shown you just yet, but we should be able to see the card art first of all,
Oh, yeah.
hopefully, for the recolor that comes with Hachiman. And this is a green version, of
Yeah,
course.
it's green.
You have to have some of the other versions. I like the look of that one, too.
We kind of went with a very, white paladin-y kind
Yeah.
of color scheme with a little bit of green accent.
Little bit of a green accent.
Just a
There's
tiny bit.
quite a bit of green
Yeah,
there.
that's true.
There's less
It's like
green
there's a
than
little bit of
skulls. I was
skulls.
gonna say, there's less green than skulls. in
He
this.
doesn't have that many skulls, I guess.
He does have some demonic faces, though.
He does on his belt.
But that shit is historically accurate.
That's awesome. I'm
yeah,
sure
you
it's
see
even
a
game
lot
too.
of that.
Oh,
Yeah, the green.
I like the green.
I like it too. I'm a big fan of
Man,
green.
there are a lot of details of his outfit that I just really like the bead necklace and the classic male spirit horns on his helmet. Just a lot of details that I really like.
His bow and his quiver, I believe, too, were pretty historically researched.
Yeah, we
for
went
mounted
very,
archery.
very historical on the mounted samurai bowman. I mean, we mixed some elements together, but they all have their origins in Japanese armor and armaments.
The green horse.
I love how it turned out.
The horse is really cool too. He's got a pretty scary armor set, and he's got a lot of horns and spikes. And,
You can see
Yeah, Pon's
slowing him down.
right?
Yep, so
That's
you
not
can
actually
really
him
get right in.
slowing it down for our
Yeah,
view. It's actually just how slow. Oh, that's it.
no,
slowed
you
down.
can control it kind of like Guan's horse. If you hold a back while you're moving,
Sure.
you can slow the horse down.
And a pretty fun piece of Smite God development
Oh, yeah,
trivia.
there he is.
Look at the pony.
Oh no!
So can we get a Chiron underneath Hachiman at some point and make it a super skin?
Kairachiman.
You can ride Chiron. Kairachiman.
I was trying to tell a story,
I'm sorry.
and
I
you
got
just
distracted.
came in and were like,
Go on, tell the story.
Gonna ride Chiron.
Tell the story,
Is
Chuck.
Chiron gonna wear a helmet?
Tell us
while
the story.
Hachiman's riding
Tell the
him?
story, Chuck.
Maybe it's just fancy.
So we were making Hachiman. We had just made a dude that turned into a giant monster and a dude that turned into a bear. And animation and modeling departments were like, dude, you can't